So for the continuity in the videos, I'm going to start on the interior. In actuality, I clear coated the body and set that aside, but I will pick that up in the video in which I will finish the entire build and also do mainly all the body work and finishing that off. So for this one, I started on the interior, cut all the parts out of the sprues, test fitted the new seats from Plamos, and also started cleaning up some of the mold lines, scuffing up some of the parts and applying some primer and color to them. All of the parts for the interior were now primed and ready for their colors. I mixed up some beige with a darker brown in order to get a darker tint of the beige for the seats. I applied it, and then after that I let it dry for a couple of minutes and then moved on to gently masking it off and painting the rest flat black. The masking tape used was from KIP, but you could also use some Tamiya, that works just as well. After masking the back seat and the door panels, I moved on to painting the rest of the parts flat black. So now all the parts have received their main colors and I could move on to adding some detail. On the dashboard there is a nice big piece of trim, so I created a template with some masking tape to later on apply some carbon fiber from Skill Motorsport. But before I started applying those decals, I firstly decided to paint a lot of the details with some silver paint from Vallejo and a super fine brush from Citadel, otherwise known as Games Workshop. If you can't find these, Tamiya brushes work just as well. Some Scale Motorsport Decal Magic decal solution was applied before I applied the decals on top of them in order to form them a lot better. It is basically a set and a sol in one, and a lot friendlier for the decals and a lot easier to use and easier to correct, as it doesn't really shape the decal as extreme as decal set and sol do, but it works a bit slower and a bit more safer, as I mentioned. After I had applied the carbon fiber decal to the dashboard and looked it over once more, I decided that one of the bigger silver details I added to the gauge clusters was a bit too much and not really to my liking, so instead of using the silver, I painted over it with some gunmetal. And to have a bit of continuity in the design for the interior, I also painted some of the trim pieces on the door panels in the same gunmetal color as I used on the dashboard. Some more details were painted in with some normal flat black, also from Vallejo, on various places inside of the door panels, some on the dashboard, and also some of the main interior tub. For the dashboard, I wanted to create a bit more depth in the vents and on some of the buttons, so I added some Tamiya panel line accent color, and I also did the same to the center console. Some more details were added with some paint, a couple of decals were applied, and I also corrected the screen in the center as the decal is way too small and the screen needs a bit more black, so I just added some Tamiya black with a brush, just some normal XF1. To recreate a carpet on the main floor pan, I added some paints from Humbrol, just some enamel slow drying paints, and then added some flocking on top of that from Scale Production in order to recreate that carpet look. The details were painted, the carpet was in, and the decals were applied, so I could move on to assembly. Everything assembled pretty easily with a snap or pressure tight fit. You need to either make the holes a bit bigger in order to make it fit a bit easier, or just use some brute force. After everything was assembled in the normal kitway form, I also glued in the seats from Plamos, just using some super glue and putting them in place of the originals. After that was all said and done, I applied some seat belts to the back and to the front. These were seatbelt material from T2M, which I believe is no longer available. It's a big shame, as I really like using it, but you can just also change it for some Scale Production seatbelt material or any other brand you like.